Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving deep into one of the most iconic images in comic book history, period. Yeah, I'm talking about that symbol Dr. Manhattan burns right onto his own forehead. Now, on the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? But trust me, as we're about to see, it holds layers of meaning that are just, well, they're truly mind-blowing. So let's just start with a huge question. What if this symbol that we all know so well is also the one we understand the least? What if it's been hiding this incredibly profound argument right there in plain sight? And for all these years, we've all been missing the deepest part of the story. All right, so to even begin to understand the hidden meaning, we first have to talk about the obvious one. The first layer of this whole thing is rooted firmly in the world of science, which makes a lot of sense for Dr. Manhattan. And you gotta remember, this wasn't a symbol that was just given to him. Oh no. When the military tried to brand him with this flashy, multi-ringed atomic age logo, he just looks at it and calls it absurd. His choice was deliberate, something he said he could actually respect as a scientist. So what did he choose? This, the Bohr model of a hydrogen atom. And as you can see, it's about as simple as it gets. One proton, one electron. By picking this, he's not just grabbing a cool science logo. He's aligning himself with the most fundamental, the most basic building block of our entire reality. And this, right here, is where the first huge piece of the puzzle just clicks into place. You see, in scientific terms, hydrogen is both the alpha, it's the very first element on the periodic table, and it's the iota, the smallest and simplest atom that can even exist. Now, remember those two words, iota and alpha. Burn them into your brain, because they are absolutely crucial for what's coming next. Okay, so we've got the science layer down, but this is where the rabbit hole gets so much deeper. We're about to jump from the language of physics to the language of theology. And believe it or not, it all hinges on those two little words. So here's the pivot point. We have iota for the smallest, alpha for the first. But what if that's not a coincidence? What if those two scientific labels actually combine to unlock a completely different, much deeper level of meaning? And here it is. This is the connection. Those scientific terms, iota and alpha, they combine to form the acronym Aya. And get this, Aya also happens to be an ancient two-letter translation of the divine name for God. All of a sudden, the symbol for the simplest piece of matter is also a name for the ultimate divinity. It's just, wow. And listen, this isn't some modern fan theory. This has deep historical roots. Way back in the 5th century, the scholar Theodore of Cyrus actually recorded the name as Ya. Then, more than 1,000 years later, the 1539 Great Bible, the first authorized English Bible, explicitly uses Ya in Psalm 68. Sure, modern Bibles might use Jah or Lord, but the history, the original translation, it's right there. So we have the symbol's hidden name. But the final piece of this insane puzzle isn't just what the symbol is, it's where he puts it. This is the moment the entire argument just locks together perfectly. Just listen to this verse from the book of Revelation. And his name shall be in their foreheads. A prophecy, talking about the divine name being placed directly on the forehead. So let's just connect all the dots. 1, 2, 3. 1. The symbol for hydrogen gives us iota and alpha. 2. This creates the acronym IA, an ancient name for God. And 3. Dr. Manhattan places this very symbol, this name, right on his forehead. He is literally visually fulfilling a biblical prophecy. It's wild. I mean, when you put it all together, you realize this isn't just some cool design choice. It is an entire intellectual and theological argument, presented to us as a single powerful image. This symbol basically becomes a bridge, a meeting point. It connects the first and smallest building block of our physical universe, the hydrogen atom, with one of the oldest names for the creator of that universe. It's a visual argument that, hey, maybe science and divinity aren't so far apart after all. And one writer put it perfectly. They said it suggests that the smallest principle of matter and the highest language of divinity may be pointing to the same reality. This isn't just a superhero logo anymore, is it? It's what the source calls a teaching in symbol. So that's what we're left with. It really forces you to ask, can a simple image from a comic book actually be more than just art? Can it be a profound argument about the very nature of reality itself? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this one.
So I want you to picture the smell of burning ozone. Like, really imagine standing in this sterile, Cold War era military facility.
Oh, setting the scene. I like it.
Right. And you're watching this towering, glowing blue being, a man who essentially functions as a walking, omnipotent nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
And he slowly raises his finger to his own brow. You watch as he traces a perfectly circular scar directly into his own flesh.
Just searing it right in.
Exactly. He's searing a symbol into his forehead while he calmly rejects all the military brass standing around him. And the symbol he burns into himself is, it's the simplest scientific diagram in existence.
The Bohr model.
The Bohr model. But here's the question that completely shatters that whole moment.
Oh.
Why does this walking nuclear weapon, this being of pure quantum mechanics, suddenly care about the anthropological field notes of a 5th century Syrian bishop?
I mean, it sounds like the setup to an impossible riddle, right?
It really does. But welcome to the deep dive. We are stepping into the world of visual literature and semiotics today.
Which is essentially the study of how signs and symbols and seemingly random shapes actually create profound meaning in our brains.
Yes, exactly. And today we're looking at a puzzle where the pieces, logically, just shouldn't exist in the same universe.
We really shouldn't.
I mean, we are talking about a comic book character from the 1980s, a historical theologian from the year 450 AD, the literal foundational architecture of the periodic table of elements. And to top it off, a heavily guarded, incredibly specific translation from a 1539 English Bible.
Yeah, it's wild.
And somehow, perfectly flawlessly, all of these incredibly disparate threads intersect. They all meet on a single 1-inch patch of glowing blue forehead.
It is the absolute definition of a transdisciplinary mystery. I mean, you are pulling from particle physics, ancient linguistics, Reformation-era printing presses, and, like, apocalyptic scriptural prophecy.
Right.
All synthesized by a single stroke of an artist's pen.
I am so glad you're here with us today because this is going to be a wild ride for you listening. We are going to unpack that single iconic pop culture image, Dr. Manhattan's glowing forehead symbol from Chapter 4 of Watchmen.
Oh, such a brilliant chapter.
It really is. And we're going to reveal a staggering hidden bridge between the cold, hard facts of atomic physics and the absolute oldest concepts of ancient theology.
And what is genuinely fascinating here is that we aren't just doing, you know, a basic literary critique. We aren't spinning up some wild fan theory in a Reddit forum.
Right. No conspiracy boards here.
Exactly. The elements we are examining are primary historical documents. They are fundamental scientific models that govern how our universe expands, and they're ancient scriptural texts translated over millennia.
Yeah.
We're looking at how a modern piece of art managed to synthesize these incredibly dense, historically accurate realities into one visual argument.
Okay, so let's set the stage. If you know the lore, you know Dr. Manhattan is this supremely powerful being who perceives time and matter in a completely nonlinear way.
He sees the past, present, and future simultaneously.
Yeah, he sees the atoms that make up the walls. He operates as an American asset during the Cold War era, and the military decides they need to basically manage his public relations.
Because they're terrified of him.
They are completely terrified of him, and they know the public will be terrified of him too, so they want to brand him.
Yeah, they come to him with this flashy, multi-ringed atomic age logo.
Right, it looks like a classic 1950s sci-fi movie poster.
Oh, totally. They want him to wear it on a helmet or a uniform so he looks recognizable, friendly, safe.
Marketable.
Marketable, exactly. They want to reduce him to a mascot. They basically want to put a corporate logo on a hurricane.
That is exactly it. And his reaction to this is just visceral. In the text, he calls their logo absurd.
Yeah, he completely refuses to wear their branding.
Instead, he says that if he is going to bear a symbol, it has to be the only symbol he can genuinely respect as a scientist. So he doesn't paint it on, he doesn't sew it onto a spandex suit.
No, he sears it into his flesh.
And the symbol he chooses is a simple dot inside a circle, the Bohr model of a hydrogen atom.
Which introduces the overarching thesis of our deep dive today. This specific choice, the dot inside the circle, the hydrogen atom burned into the brow, is meticulously crafted visual theology.
Visual theology.
Yeah, it is the exact pinpointed meeting place of quantum physics, personal identity, and divine revelation.
Visual theology, it's such a heavy term. It implies that we aren't just looking at an aesthetic choice, right? We are reading an active argument.
We really are.
So to really grasp the weight of this argument, we need to start with the literal physical symbol he chose. We need to understand why a being of nearly infinite awareness would respect this specific symbol above everything else.
Precisely. We have to start with the physical reality. The symbol is the Bohr model of hydrogen. Now, in the language of physics and chemistry, hydrogen is uniquely defined. It is the fundamental, first, and smallest.
Let's really dwell on that because I think it's easy to just say hydrogen is number one and kind of move on.
Right.
But we need to unpack what that actually means for the physical universe. Let's start with the concept of the first.
Or, in the Greek conceptual framework, the alpha.
Right.
Hydrogen is atomic number 1 on the periodic table. It is the absolute origin point of all matter.
Yeah.
In standard cosmological models following the Big Bang, hydrogen was the very first element to form as the universe cooled enough for protons and electrons to bind.
Wow.
It is the primordial building block. Every star you see in the night sky is essentially a massive furnace fusing hydrogen into helium.
Yeah.
And in the death throes of those stars, all the heavier elements like the carbon in our bodies, the iron in our blood, the gold in our rings, they're all forged there.
So it all traces back.
Exactly. So when you look at a hydrogen atom, you're not just looking at a gas, you're looking at the genesis of all physical matter. It is the alpha.
It's the blank canvas and the first drop of paint all at once. It's the seed from which the entire physical universe grows. And then there is the second part of this scientific definition, right? The smallest.
Yes. The Greek concept of the iota.
The iota.
Hydrogen is the simplest, most stripped-down possible configuration of an atom. In the Bohr model, which is the specific visual representation Manhattan carves into his head, it is depicted as a single proton in the nucleus, orbited by a single electron.
Just one in one.
One in one. You
Yep.
cannot get less complex than that and still have a chemical element. If you take away the electron, you just have a straight proton.
Right.
It is the barest minimum requirement for physical matter to exist. Linguistically, we even use the word iota to represent the smallest possible unit of anything.
Oh, like when someone says it doesn't make one iota of difference.
Exactly. They mean the tiniest conceivable fraction.
So the military handing him this flashy, multi-ringed atomic logo is like, I don't know, it's like putting custom neon rims and a spoiler on the Mars rover.
That's a great way to put it.
The military wants a marketing gimmick. They want something that looks powerful to the human eye, something that communicates American technological supremacy. But Manhattan doesn't care about human vanity.
No, or geopolitical posturing. Not at all.
Right.
The flashy logo is a human abstraction of power. It's how finite minds try to illustrate energy. The hydrogen atom is the actual unadorned reality of power.
Wait, let me push back on this a bit. Because if you are a being with the power of God, if you can dismantle a tank with a thought or teleport to Mars, why wouldn't you just choose a cross or a star or an infinity symbol?
Right.
If he wants to show he's beyond human control, why pick something as clinical and sterile as a hydrogen atom? Isn't choosing such a basic microscopic thing actually diminishing his immense power?
That is a phenomenal question, because it strikes right at the heart of how this character views reality. To a being who sees the fundamental structure of the universe, an infinity symbol is just a human mathematical abstraction.
It's just a concept.
Exactly. A cross or a star are cultural artifacts. They have baggage. They mean different things to different human civilizations. But hydrogen is objective. It is the first principle of the physical universe.
Explain what you mean by first principle in this context.
So in philosophy and science, a first principle is a basic foundational proposition or assumption that cannot be deduced any further.
Like you hit bedrock.
Yes. You can't break it down into a simpler idea. Hydrogen is the first principle of chemistry and physics. By choosing it, he is rejecting the idea that his power comes from human imagination or human belief systems.
Right.
He's saying, my power is the architecture of matter itself. He isn't diminishing his power by choosing something small. He's asserting that his power is foundational to everything that exists. He's identifying himself with the iota alpha.
The iota alpha, the smallest and the first. The IA. And this is exactly where the trapdoor opens up beneath us, isn't it?
It really is.
We've established the science. The Bohr model of hydrogen represents the first and the smallest, the alpha and the iota, IA. But here is where we make the linguistic leap.
Yes.
Because this specific pairing of Greek concepts isn't just a neat scientific shorthand. It is a massive, historically documented bridge into antiquity.
It is the exact linguistic leap that drops us directly out of quantum physics and right into ancient theology. Because this scientific iota alpha, this IA, perfectly mirrors one of the most ancient, documented names for the divine.
We are talking about the two-letter Hebrew name for divinity. the u.E.v.o.L.i.
Yes. In ancient Hebrew theology, the name of the creator is incredibly sacred. It is deeply complex and was heavily guarded.
Right.
Often, a shortened two-letter form of the divine name is used in scripture, in poetry, and in prayer. And that shortened form consists of the Hebrew letters Yod and He.
Okay, but how do we get from a Hebrew u.E.v.o.L.i to a Greek iota-alpha? Because that's the connection that ties the ancient theology back to the hydrogen atom.
You need a bridge between those two languages.
Exactly. And to find it, we have to look at a very specific historical figure from the 5th century, a bishop named Theodore of Cyrus.
Theodore of Cyrus is just such a fascinating figure. He was a theologian and a bishop in the 5th century, operating in the region of Syria. He wrote extensively, and one of his works is a commentary called Questions on Exodus. In this text, specifically in section 15, he steps away from pure theology and acts almost like an early anthropologist or linguist.
Really?
Yeah. He is actively documenting how different cultural groups in his era pronounced the sacred divine name.
So he's basically taking field notes. He's out there listening to how different ancient peoples are vocalizing a name that was, in many traditions, considered too holy to even speak aloud.
Exactly. And the phonetic realities of ancient languages can be incredibly slippery, which is why his documentation is so vital. He records a very specific linguistic divide.
Okay, what does he find?
He notes that while the Samaritans pronounced the divine name as i.L.o.v., the Jews in his era used a different pronunciation for the shortened divine name. They use Aya, spelled in Greek as iota alpha.
I really want us to sit with this for a second because the sheer scale of this coincidence or design, depending on how you look at it, is staggering.
It's unbelievable.
We aren't doing some kind of modern internet age numerology here. We aren't squinting at a comic book page, rearranging letters, and making up a connection.
No, not at all.
The exact Greek letters used to conceptualize the smallest and first building blocks of physical matter, the hydrogen atom, the iota alpha, are the exact same letters historically documented by a 5th century scholar as the spoken name of the highest creator.
It is a profound historical alignment. Theodore of Cyrus gives us primary documentation. This isn't a modern theory of translation. It is a direct, historically observed Greek rendering of the Hebrew u.E.v.o.L.i, written down over 1,500 years ago.
Wow.
He locked that pronunciation into the Greek alphabet, iota alpha.
It is just awe-inspiring. You have this purely scientific shorthand for the fundamental architecture of the universe, and it perfectly overlays a theological shorthand from an ancient text.
Yes.
The IA of the elements is the IA of divinity. But a question naturally arises here, right? How does this connection survive the meat grinder of history?
That is the real challenge, isn't it? Languages are living things.
Yeah.
They die, they shift, they blend.
Right, because how does a 5th century Greek translation of an ancient Hebrew concept make its way into the consciousness of English literature? If the connection existed in antiquity, we need a bridge to the modern era.
We do.
We need to see how the iota alpha survived. And that brings us to a massive physical artifact, a book printed in 1539, the Great Bible.
The 1539 Great Bible is a monumental artifact. It was the very first authorized edition of the Bible in English, commissioned by King Henry VIII.
Okay, so this is a huge deal at the time.
Huge. He wanted a single authoritative text to be read aloud in church services across England. Before this, the Bible was primarily in Latin, accessible only to the clergy and the highly educated.
Right, the average person couldn't just sit down and read it.
Not at all. The Great Bible represents a critical moment of transition. It was the moment ancient texts were being frozen into modern print in the vernacular for a mass audience.
And the text points us to a very specific, deeply poetic verse in this massive tome, Psalm 68.4.
In Psalm 68.4 of the 1539 Great Bible, the text explicitly translates the name of the Creator who rideth upon the heavens. And the translation reads, "Praise ye him in his name Ia, and rejoice before him."
There it is, right there in the black ink of the printing press, spelled exactly as the Greek iota alpha, Ia.
Praise ye him in his name Ia.
It is entirely explicit. The translators of the great Bible men like Miles Coverdale, who was working from the pioneering translation work of William Tyndale, they didn't just invent a word.
Right.
They looked at the ancient text. They looked at the Hebrew u.E.v.o.L.i. They understood the historical Greek context documented by scholars like Theodore, and they chose to cement that exact phonetic translation into English typography as Ia.
But this is where the history of language gets incredibly messy, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you walk into a bookstore right now, or if you go to a hotel room and open the drawer and pull out a standard King James Bible, which was printed about 70 years later and became the dominant English translation for centuries, you will not find the letters I.A. in Psalm 68.4. No, you won't. If you read the King James Version, or almost any subsequent modern version, the typography is shifted. It reads J-A-H. J-A-H.
Okay, we need to explain how that happened, because it looks like a completely different word. How do we get from I-A to J-A-H?
It comes down to the mechanics of linguistic drift and the physical evolution of the alphabet itself. It is essentially an ancient game of linguistic telephone, compounded by the invention of a new letter.
Unpack that. What do you mean a new letter?
So in ancient Latin and ancient Greek, the letter J did not exist.
Really?
Really? The letter I was used for both vowel sounds, like in machine, and consonant sounds, like the Y sound in yellow.
Yeah.
So IA was pronounced somewhat like ya.
Oh, okay.
Over centuries, spoken languages evolved. In medieval Latin and the emerging Romance languages, that initial consonant I sound started to harden and palatalize. It shifted from a soft Y sound to a harder J sound.
So people's mouths just physically started forming the sound differently over hundreds of years of spoken tradition.
Exactly. And eventually, the written alphabet had to catch up to the spoken word. In the 16th century, printers and grammarians started heavily utilizing the letter J, which was originally just a stylistic variant of I with a little tail on it, to specifically represent that harder consonant sound.
Ah, I see.
By the time the King James Bible was printed in 1611, the typographic standard had shifted. The hard I sound had softened into a J sound in English pronunciation, and the spelling was updated to match. IA morphed into JH.
That is fascinating. The linguistic drift creates a barrier. It obscures the original connection. JAH doesn't visually connect to iota alpha anymore.
It really doesn't.
But that is precisely why the 1539 Great Bible is so unbelievably vital to our understanding of this visual puzzle.
It serves as a linguistic fossil. It perfectly preserved the exact iota alpha spelling before the linguistic telephone game shifted the letters. It captures the translation at a precise moment in time, frozen in print, proving that the English connection to the ancient iota alpha is absolutely genuine. The translators of the Great Bible captured the IA before the J took over.
So let's look at the immense structure we've built so far. We have Dr. Manhattan choosing the hydrogen atom. The hydrogen atom is the first and the smallest, the alpha and the iota, the IA.
Right.
We look back at ancient history, and a 5th century bishop tells us the Greek iota alpha, IA, is the spoken name of the creator. We look at the 1539 Great Bible, and there it is in English, frozen in typography, his name IA.
Which proves that the symbol the character chooses is not a superficial design. It is a living historical bridge.
Yes.
It is cemented in primary historical and literary sources. The symbol directly connects the historically attested name of God with the fundamental building block of the physical universe.
We know what the symbol means now. We have traced its lineage from the Big Bang through ancient Syria into the printing presses of Tudor England and onto the comic page.
We really have.
But here is where we have to transition from the history of the symbol to the physical action of the character. Because where Dr. Manhattan chooses to place this symbol transforms it from a really neat scientific and linguistic parallel into something profoundly chilling.
The placement is everything.
Yeah.
The military wanted him to wear their logo on a belt buckle or a helmet. He doesn't do that.
Oh, no.
He doesn't paint the hydrogen atom on a shield or a chest emblem. He bypasses clothing entirely. He burns it into his own brow.
And this specific placement on the forehead activates yet another layer of ancient text. We're looking at a prophetic source now.
Yeah.
The book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 4.
Yes. Revelation is the final book of the New Testament.
Yes.
And it is a text steeped in a highly symbolic, apocalyptic imagery.
Really?
Now, apocalyptic literature isn't just about the end of the world. The word apocalypse literally means an unveiling, a revealing of ultimate truths.
I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, they assume it just means fire and brimstone. But Revelation deals with ultimate endings, ultimate realities, and the final revelation of the divine. And in Revelation 22.4, it describes a concluding vision of humanity standing before the Creator. The verse explicitly states, "And they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads."
His name shall be in their foreheads. Think about the visceral act in the story.
It's intense.
Manhattan raises his finger, he channels his quantum power, and he sears the iota alpha, the symbol of hydrogen, the exact spelling of the divine name IA, directly into his brow.
The synthesis is inescapable. By placing the iota alpha, the yod-he, on his brow, Manhattan is visually fulfilling this exact scriptural prophecy. He's literally wearing the divine name on his forehead.
So what does this all mean for the character? Because I want to really dig into the philosophical implications here.
Okay, let's do it.
By doing this, is Manhattan claiming to be God? Is this an act of supreme, unchecked arrogance? Or is he doing something far more complex? Is he a being who has simply realized that the foundation of physics is the highest power, and he is just acknowledging the ultimate reality of his existence?
That is the absolute crux of his psychological state in the narrative.
Hmm.
We have to look at how he experiences reality because it is entirely alien to how we experience it.
Right.
The text tells us he perceives all time and matter simultaneously. He doesn't experience the past, present, and future sequentially like we do. He doesn't remember the past or anticipate the future. He is living in all of it right now.
It's like instead of watching a parade go down a street from the sidewalk where you only see the floats passing by one, he is in a helicopter looking down at the entire parade route.
I love that analogy.
He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end all at exactly the same time.
That is a perfect analogy. And because he sees the entire tapestry of existence simultaneously, because he can literally see the atoms vibrating in the air, because he can dismantle a complex machine into its component molecules with a mere thought, he sees the fundamental truth of the universe.
Yeah.
He realizes that the smallest building block of science, the hydrogen atom, and the highest concept of divinity are one and the same. They are both the first principle. They are both the ultimate source of reality.
So by burning that symbol into his forehead, he isn't just cosplaying as a deity. He isn't trying to be a cult leader. He is proving a unified theory of existence.
Exactly. He transcends humanity to become the Alpha and Omega. He embodies the intersection of physical law and divine order.
And the choice of the forehead is so deeply resonant. It's not just a blank piece of skin. The forehead, historically, anatomically, and symbolically, is considered the seat of identity. It's the frontal lobe. It's where human consciousness, decision-making, and intellect reside. It's the highest point of the face. When you truly look at someone, when you recognize them, you look at their face.
Yeah.
When he places the symbol there, it's not an accessory. That glowing mark fundamentally redefines who he is. It is his new, true identity.
Which brings us to a really crucial point about how we engage with this kind of material.
Yeah.
There's an entire deep dive, this unearthing of history, particle physics, linguistics, and prophecy forces us to step back and examine the medium itself.
You mean the fact that this incredibly dense theological and scientific argument is happening in a comic book?
Precisely. It introduces the concept of comic book language as a deeply effective teaching tool. It argues that this visual medium can teach us and can convey complex philosophical arguments in ways that pure text sometimes cannot.
I think it's very easy for people to dismiss comics or graphic novels as just pop culture or just light entertainment. A lot of people see a blue guy in a comic and think, okay, superheroes fighting. But what we're looking at here is a dense, multi-layered visual argument. It is visual theology.
Think about the mechanics of reading text versus viewing a symbol. In a text-based essay, I would have to spend thousands of words explaining the connection between the Bohr model of hydrogen, the linguistic field notes of Theodoret of Cyrus, the topographic choices of the 1539 Great Bible, and the apocalyptic visions of Revelation.
Right.
The reader has to process all of that sequentially, word by word, page by page. But in a comic, the artist can synthesize all of that data into a single, striking image.
Let's collaboratively break down the components of this visual argument just to see how elegantly and efficiently it's constructed. First, you have the atom itself.
Right.
The atom ceases to be just a sterile scientific diagram found in a chemistry textbook. It becomes a sign. It becomes a linguistic character.
Second, you have the placement. The forehead becomes the seat of identity. It ceases to be just a part of the character's anatomy and becomes a canvas for scriptural fulfillment. It grounds the scientific symbol in an ancient prophetic context.
And third, the glowing mark itself, the blue luminescence. It points to a unified reality. It bypasses our logical processing and hits us intuitively.
Yes, exactly.
It tells the reader, look here, look closer. This isn't just a science fiction character with neat powers. This is a walking intersection of atomic truth and divine naming.
And the sheer brilliance of the medium is that the reader absorbs this argument instantly on a subconscious, intuitive level, even if they don't consciously know about the 1539 Great Bible or their 5th century Greek translations.
Right, it still hits them.
The image carries the weight of those historical truths. It asks you to look at the smallest principle of matter and the highest language of divinity and realize they are pointing to the exact same reality. The visual synthesizes what the intellect has to parse out.
It elevates the whole medium. It proves it isn't just commercial art, it is a teaching in symbol. It absolutely blows my mind.
It really is brilliant.
You take a seemingly simple visual choice by an artist. Let's give the glowing blue guy a simple dot with a circle on his head so he stands out from the military branding. And layered beneath that ink is a staggering, coherent argument about the fundamental nature of the universe.
It challenges us to reconsider how we consume stories. It demands active reading. It asks us to assume that every detail might be a trapdoor into a deeper reality.
It really does. We've covered an immense amount of ground today, and I want to briefly summarize the sheer scale of the journey we've taken on this deep dive, because tracing this lineage is just breathtaking.
Yeah, let's trace it back.
We started in a Cold War bunker with a glowing blue knot, the simple, elegant Bohr model of a hydrogen atom, the absolute foundation of the physical universe, the first and the smallest, the alpha and the iota. From there, we opened a linguistic trapdoor and traveled back to the 5th century, looking over the shoulder of Bishop Theodoret of Cyrus as he documented that the Greek letters iota alpha A were the historically spoken translation of the ancient Hebrew divine name, the Yod-He.
Right.
Then we watched that ancient Greek leap forward in time, crossing over into Tudor England, freezing into the typography of the 1539 Great Bible in Psalm 68.4. We saw it explicitly naming the creator as IA, capturing the truth just decades before linguistic drift turned the I into a J and transformed the word into JAH.
It's incredible.
And finally, we watched a being of infinite perception take that ancient scientific divine name and sear it into his own brow, chillingly and perfectly fulfilling the visual prophecy of Revelation 22.4. His name shall be in their foreheads.
When you synthesize all of this, the core takeaway, the reason this matters to you, the listener, is about the profound depth of the world around you.
Yeah.
It challenges us to look much closer at the media we consume, the art we view, and the symbols we take for granted every single day. We live in a world overflowing with information, and it's easy to skim the surface. But knowledge, history, and profound meaning are almost always layered deeply beneath seemingly simple surfaces. The simplest atom can hold the oldest name.
It's just a beautiful, haunting reminder that the universe, our science, our history, our language, and our art is interconnected in ways that are almost too vast to comprehend, yet perfectly, stunningly logical when you finally find the right puzzle pieces.
Well said.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've spent this time seeing how the first and smallest physical element, the absolute baseline of matter, perfectly aligns with the ultimate concept of divine power and identity.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, as you go about your week in your own life, what are the seemingly microscopic iotas? What are the absolute smallest possible daily actions, the tiny repetitive habits, or those split-second choices you make that you barely even notice? Because if this deep dive has taught us anything, it's that the smallest, most fundamental building blocks are secretly holding the ultimate seat of power over who you are becoming.
That is a great thought to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. It has been an absolute thrill to unpack these incredibly dense, historic sources with you. Keep questioning the surfaces, keep looking for the hidden bridges, and most importantly, keep digging deep. Until next time.